be a spiritual lesson that comes out of it. So when you study Gideon or Abraham or the prophets or whatever it is, there is a doctrinal component, and this is where the foundation of the believer's stability anchors upon doctrine. When you understand the doctrinal construct of scripture, then you are able to navigate scripture with intelligence, because the foundation of doctrine that you have keeps you balanced. The inability to understand the doctrinal construct of scripture is what is responsible for the vacillations. People believe this today, believe that tomorrow, because they have not understood the doctrinal construct of scripture. Does not demand creativity. It is fixed. Your assignment is to discover it and communicate it accurately. But then there is another layer which unfortunately many people have ignored or rejected through ignorance. It's called the prophetic layer of scripture. This one is the business of you and God, because the Bible is a prophetic book, more than a historic book and more than a book that contains doctrine. It is a prophetic book, likened to a scroll that can be opened and then whose seals will be unlocked. So there is how God will draw forth a message from a verse, and based on what he's telling you, it is not within its contextual meaning. God can give you another meaning out of his contextual meaning. I already taught you that, and I gave you an example. Let me repeat one more time for your understanding. In Galatians chapter 2, for instance, when you read verse 2, Galatians 2:2, please media, give it to us. Let me just state an example and then we'll continue. Galatians 2 and verse 2, it says, I went up by revelation and communicated unto them the gospel which was preached among the Gentiles. So Paul is teaching, and from a contextual standpoint, he's simply saying, I traveled to another region and I ministered to them. That is the doctrinal contextual meaning of that scripture. Are we together? But then when you get a prophetic revelation here, like I taught you, the first 6 words can mean something entirely different. I went up, and I went up by revelation. God can use that scripture to now begin to teach you that it takes revelation to ascend realms. Are you seeing now? It is from a theological standpoint beyond the scope of that context, but it still can minister to you because the Bible is a prophetic material. So it is not unusual to find people draw forth revelations from scripture that when you read from a contextual standpoint, you will think they are in error. But the results that show forth from their lives clearly show that it was God that gave them. Now the danger is the prophetic dimension of scripture must never be exalted above and beyond the doctrinal dimension. That is the mistake. So God can give me a prophetic instruction, for instance, and say, okay, march around this place 7 times and reference it with what happened to Joshua. Now that is not a doctrine. It was an isolated experience as a prophetic strategy for victory. Are we together? Theologically speaking, for anything to be called a doctrine, there are 3 litmus tests. Number 1, that thought or that body of truth must be in the Old Testament. Number 2, that body of reality must be captured in the ministry of Jesus. And then number 3, that body of reality